Hilchos, Gezelah, ve'aveda, the laws of stealing and lost objects. Just to give a introduction for Hilchos, Gezelah, ve'aveda, it's important in general to know a few psukim in the Torah. Number one, it says in Vayikra, Perek Yutes, Pasuk Yud Gimel, what's the isser to steal or to hold back money? Leisashik esrecha v'leisigzil. Leitolim pul asafer itchad baker. From here's the source that you're not allowed to be over on Gezelah or lashik. Then there's another isser of coveting. Leisachmed, the Torah says, Leisachmed b'isrecha, Leisachmed eishes recha, ba'avli v'amasi v'shedi v'chamidi b'chol ha'shil recha. As well, Leisachmed eishes recha, Leitisavet b'isrecha sadeu. The isser against denying the pikadin of money, mitzvah to give back a Gezelah, the Torah says in Vayikra Hey from Pasuk Chaf to Chaf Vav, Nefek yisechta u'mala mal ba'Hashem v'chichesh ba'misei b'bikadin e'b'sumas yad. It means you gave money e'b'gazol e'asher k'samisei matzah aveda v'chichesh v'nishbar shaker. So that's the whole source. Then we're going to discuss in Hilchos Gezelah v'aveda about Karen and Chemish and Asham, and that's in Bamidbar Hey from Pasuk Hey to Yud. Torah says, Dabra b'nei Yisrael isha ki yasim mikol chateis adam limim ba b'Hashem v'ashma nefesh ha'hi. So the halacha is that v'nosam asher Asham, and he has to give as well a Chemish. And then lastly, we're going to learn in the halachas of Gezelah v'aveda is the halachas of Hashavas aveda. And this is in Devarim Chaf Beis from Pasuk Aleph to Gimel. Esir Sher Chiches Seyei Yidachem Salamta Mehem Hoshev Tishavim Lachecha. You have to, one has to be Mekayim Hashavas Aveda. Now, in Perek Aleph, we're going to be learning about the issue of stealing and coveting. So it has, the halachas, Perek Aleph has a total of 13 halachas. From Aleph to Gimel speaks about the halachas of stealing. From then halacha Dal speaks about the isser of about oishik, withholding a colleague's money. From then we're going to learn about from halachas Hey to Ches about Hashavas Gezelah. Halacha Tes is going to speak about the isser of chomud. And then from Pasuk from Halacha Yud to Yud Beis, we'll speak about the isser of coveting, and Pasuk and Halacha Yud Gimel will speak about Hashavas Aveda. That's Perek Aleph. So let's begin. Hilchos Gezelah v'Aveda, the introduction to Hilchos Gezelah v'Aveda. Ish b'chlalin sheva mitzvahs. There's 7 mitzvahs. Shtei mitzvahs asay. And the Chumash mitzvahs leis say 2 positive commandments and 5 negative commandments. And Zeo Proton, there are the details. Number 1, Shaloi ligzel, you're not allowed to rob. Shaloi lashik, not allowed to withhold money due to a friend. Shaloi lachmeit, not allowed to desire or belong to somebody. Shaloi disabis, you're not allowed to, number 1, Gimel was not to covet and not to desire. Hey, Hashavas Gezelah, to return an article obtained by robbery. Shleis Alim Min Aveda, not to ignore a lost article. And the Hashav Aveda, to return the lost article. We're going to explain these halachas in this Perek. Halacha Aleph. Kol ha-gezelos chavei shaver pruta ever b'leis esei. Whoever robs an object worth a pruta from a friend is over, transgresses a negative commandment. Shemar, as the pasuk says, "Le tigzil," do not rob. Ein leiken al lav zeh. However, one does not get malchus for being over this lav. Shani akos nitke lasei shem gozol chayav lahachzer, because the Torah, because it can be corrected by the fulfillment of a mitzvah asay. Shemar, like it says, "V'heishav v'saksei lasher gozol mitzvah asay." You should return the article he obtained by robbery. This is a mitzvah asay. Now, even if the robber burnt the object that he robbed, the halach is he does not get malchus. Why? Because he has an obligation to pay the value. And any commandment that results in a financial penalty is not punished by Malchus. It's forbidden to rob even the slightest amount. It's forbidden even to rob or withhold money from a guy who worships idols. If a person robs or withholds money from such a person, he has to return it. Gimel, Ezo Gezel, what is meant by Gezelah, robbery? A person who takes money by force. For example, either he seizes movable property from a friend, or he enters a colleague's domain and takes kalim against his friend's will. Or he seizes a friend's servants or the behemoths and he uses them. Or he enters a friend's field and eats his produce. These and any similar acts are considered robbery. As the pasuk says, and he robbed a spear from the Egyptians. This is a pasuk in Shmuel Beis, Chav Gimel, Chav Aleph. What is meant by Oishik, withholding? It refers to a person who was given money willingly by a friend, and then it was demanded of him. And again, what does it mean, withholding a colleague's due? First, a person who was given money willingly by a friend, and then, when it was demanded of him, he forcefully maintained possession of it and refused to return it. For example, a person was given a loan, where he had hired a friend, and when payment was demanded, he forcefully refused to pay. This is what the pasuk says, do not withhold money from your friend. Hey, call Hagezel Chayiv Lahavzir Hagzelah. Whoever robs is obligated to return the article that he obtained by robbery. Like it says, and he should return the article he obtained by robbery. If the chayfetz was lost or underwent the change, the robber has to pay its value. Doesn't matter if he admitted that he stole, or witnesses come and testify that he committed robbery. He is required to pay only the principal that he obtained by robbery. Even if a person robbed a beam and he used it for his building, the Torah requires that he tear down the entire building and return the beam to its owner. Why? Because the beam remained unchanged. However, the Chacham instituted to encourage robbers to do tshuva or to repent. Chacham instituted that the robber pay the worth of the beam and did not require him to destroy the building. The same applies to all similar situations. Even if a person robbed the beam and used it to building a sukkah, and now the owner comes and starts screaming that you took his beam, so the robber is required to pay its value. After the Chag finishes, since the beam remains unchanged, as was not permanently affixed to the structure, the robber must return the beam itself. If a person steals less than a shavar pruta, even though he committed a transgression, he's not required to return the article he retained by robbery. What? When a person robs something worth less than a pruta, although he was over a transgression, he's not required to return the article he retained by robbery. if he robbed 3 bundles of vegetables or branches that were originally worth 3 prutas, and he returned 2, he has to return 3, because it was worth a Shavah Pruta. Person robbed 2 items together worth a pruta and returned one of them. He's not considered to possess an article that was robbed, nor does he have an obligation to return the item that was robbed. Zayin. Hagezos chaveda b'yeshuv yichzulei gezelah v'midbar reshus b'yad nigzal imratz netel v'mlav amr le'eni netel ala b'yeshuv shemateonis menukan. A person robs a friend in, let's say, in a settled area, and in the desert offers to return the article that he obtained by robbery. So the option is given to the person who was robbed. If he wants, he could take the article. If not, he can tell the robber, I will not accept the return of the article only in the settled region. Why? Because lest it be taken from here by powers beyond my control. Now, so basically, the article remains the responsibility of the robber until he returns to the person in a settled area. The same applies with regards to payment of a robbed article. When a person robs money from a friend and returns it by including it in change, he returns to the person whom he robbed, so he fulfills the obligation of returning the article obtained by robbery. It means the most of the mashmish bekise the whole shop. Now, even if the robber returned the money to a wallet belonging to the owner that contains money, he fulfills his obligation because a person usually checks his wallet at times, and the owner will count the money that was returned together with his money. If the case, the keys if the robber returned the money that he obtained by robbery to a wallet that's empty, he does not fulfill his obligation. He remains responsible for the money obtained by robbery until he informs the owner that he returned the money to that particular wallet. Halacha test. Kol hachemet avdei ayamase a basic kelo shachavere dover sharfli shikanel memeno v'hichbir alav bereim v'ifsher be'ad shalachum memeno alpha v'shanas le'davar rabim has a relationship number le'sachvin. Anybody who covets a servant, a maidservant, a house utensil that belongs to a friend, or any other article that he can purchase from him and precious with his friend and request until he agrees to sell to him, he's oiver a leisasei, even though he pays much more, as it says, loy sachmid, not allowed to covet. And like an alav zemnish, ain't by maisa, you don't get malchus because there's no maisa. But aver, the aver, belav ze ad sheikach acheb b'tshachamid. You're not over the lav unless you actually take the article. And you should never lay sachmid kesef azav aleim lakaf loch. Do not covet the gold and silver of these statues and take it for yourself. Chimud sheyish by maisa, which means it has to be a chimud, coveting accompanying a maisa. Yod kol hamisava beisa yishte v'kelu shalchaveda v'chein kol chayitzu b'hem shadvar she'esh le'liknesim imenu. Anyone who desires a home, a wife, a keli, or anything that belongs to a friend that he can acquire, so then he's over the lav. Kim shechasher b'libay hey chiyikin edavar zav v'nifta b'libay edavar of a relisasing. Why? Because he thinks in his heart how is it possible to acquire this, and his heart is aroused by these things. As it says, leitisava, do not desire. Desire refers to feelings in the heart alone. Desire leads to chimut, to coveting, and coveting leads to robbery. For if the owners do not desire to sell, despite the offer of much money, and then the supplication of a friend, a person motivated by desire will be moved by robbery. Like it says, they covered the houses and stole. And if the owner stands up against them to save his property, or in another way prevents the person motivated by desire from robbery, then he will be murdered. Learn from the narrative of Achim and Novis. So we see that a person who desires another person's property is over one negative commandment. One who purchases an object he desires after pressuring the owner and repeatedly asking them violates two negative commandments. Kach nemer le'sachmed and le'tisava. That's what the Torah says. Le'sachmed and le'tisava. And Gezelah, and if you steal it, then over b'shleish allowing you violate three negative commandments. Last halacha of the Perek. A person who steals, who robs, even a shava pruta, he's considered as if he took to the very soul. Such are the ways of those who are greedy, take away the soul of the owner. Notwithstanding the severity of the sin, if the article that was taken by robbery no longer exists, and a robber seeks to do tshuva and comes of his own violation to return the value of the article, we don't accept it. The robber should be helped and forgiven to make the path of tshuva more acceptable to those who wish to return. Whoever does accept payment for this article, the Chachamim they don't look at him favorably. Perek Beis. In Perek Beis, we're going to learn about, from Halacha Aleph and Beis, we're going to learn about purchasing the Gezelah, and if the Gezelah goes up in price, if there's a Shinei Rishus, that's Halacha Gimel Tehei. Halacha Vav Tetes is about acquiring the Shvach, and Halacha Yud to Yadal is about the Haggadoros of the Shinei, and the last two the Tezvav and Tezayin speak about the Takana of not paying the chas. We're going to see what that means, and when it goes up. And it has, in this halacha, this perek has 16 halachas. Halacha Aleph, Gezelah shel nishtanes ela harihi kamoi shahisa afal pi shenisai shabal mimena afal pi shemesa gazan harihi biyad banam harizeh chezeres lebala ba'atzmo. When an object taken by robbery remains unchanged, so it itself has to be returned to the original owner. This applies even if the owner was miyayish, he disappeared, or even when the robber himself has died, and the article now is in his children's possession. If the article underwent a change while in the robber's possession, even if the owners were not miyayish, he's koinet with a shine, and he has to pay the value at the time of the robbery. Base within that then Tedel. This is Salacha Minateda. Shnemer Beiser Heishav is Gezelah Shagazel. They shall return the object they obtained by robbery. Piashmu Lamdu, we learn Im he Shagazel Mishalom Isa, Mishtas Biyad Mishalom Lamel. If the object is still as is it was at the time of the robbery, it should be returned. If it undergone a change, you should pay its value. Siasha Bailam Mimena Linishtanis Kana Gazan. If the owner had the spirit of its return, but it did not undergo a change, so the robber acquires the rights to its increase in value from the time that the owner was miyayish. This was instituted midrabanan. So when it returns the object he obtained by robbery, the increase's value is evaluated, and the robber is paid for it by the person he robbed. Gimel, Machara Hagazlan, if the robber sold the article, so if he sold the article that he obtained by robbery or gave it as a present, so the purchaser is not required to return the article itself, even though he did not undergo a change. So since the owner of the spirit of his return, regardless of whether that took place before the sale or afterwards, the purchaser acquires possession of it because of the despair, because of the transfer from one domain to another. When a person obtains an article by robbery, causes it to increase in value, and then he sells it, or bequeaths it to another person, for the yish, mashishbiach heidish, mashishbiach machar, l'kan alikiach, a yish is a shevach. So, the halacha is, the purchaser of the heirs acquires the rights of the increase. So, at the time of the judgment, he should be reimbursed by the original owner of the increase in value. V'chayzer nigzal v'netel d'mei hashevach. V'chayzer nigzal v'netel d'mei hashevach v'nagazon sh'aleni seishu. V'chein mishbeach ha'lekech ha'yerish netel hashevach v'nan nigzal. The purchaser or the Yarshim caused the object to increase in value, the original owner should reimburse them of the increase. Halacha hey, mochar gazon la'akum. The robber sold it to a goy, after shishbeach ha'akum, even though the goy caused it to increase in value, it goes back to the bailam. Chora akum Yisrael, after shishbeach hayu v'gazon Yisrael, v'zehi shehi b'yoda Yisrael, kona shevach. If a goy sold it to a yid after it increased in its value, since the robber is a yid and the person in possession of the article is a yid, the purchaser is considered to have acquired an increase in value. If, however, the original owner seizes the increase in value without paying for it, is not taken from him. We explained in order to encourage people to do tshuva, the Chachamim said that when an article obtained by robbery increases in value after the owner despairs of its return or after it has undergone a change, the robber is entitled to the increase in the value. This applies even when the change comes about as a matter of course. Also, Gozal, part of an Isabra Etzli, if a person obtained a cow by robbery and it became pregnant in his possession, whether or not it bore a calf before he was called to Beis Din, because of the robbery, since the owner was miyayish of its return, he's required to pay only the value of the cow at the time of the robbery. If he stole a sheep and it grew wool, whether he sheared it before he was called to Beis Din or not, before he shorn it, so Allah is, he is required to pay only this value at the time of the robbery. If it bore offsprings or were shorn, the robber is entitled to the offsprings of the sharing, or the sharing. If it had not born offsprings, nor was it shorn at the time, the animal's increase in value is evaluated and may be collected from the original owner. Then the animal was returned. Zayin, Gozel Param will beres v'nesashwa by the Bakar Haf Yolda. A person obtained a pregnant cow by robbery, and then the owner of the spirit of it was returned. Then this para had a offspring. Or Rachel Tuna v'nesashwa by the Bakar Haf or he obtained a sheep laden with wool by robbery, and the owner of that one was yayish, and then it was shorn. The robber should pay the value of a cow ready to bear offsprings and a sheep ready to be shorn. If the animal bore offsprings or were shorn before the owner of the spirit of its return, the sharing or the offspring belonged to the original owner. This applies even if the animal became pregnant or grew wool while in possession of the thief. Since the owner was not miyayish and the animal did not undergo a change, the object obtained by robbery is still considered to belong to the original owner. So it's still the original owner, although the owner is held responsible in cases of loss due to forces beyond his control. If a person stole or obtained an animal by robbery and then was makdish or shechted it after the owner was miyayish, it's considered to be in the thief's property only for the time of the hektish. This was enacted so that it won't be a chaytinisker, it won't be a sinner who will profit. The whole of all the all its offsprings and its sharing from the time that it was stolen until the time it was makdish belonged to the original owner. An increase in value that comes as a matter of course. An animal's sharing or its offspring. If the animal was like chusha, and the robber fattened it, it was lean and he fattened it, the robber may collect the increase in value due to the fattening from the original owner, even if it took place before the order disappeared. Supplies with regard to all instances where the increase in value comes about as a result of expense. Halacha yud shini aches l'briyasa and shini. A change that can revert to its original state is not considered al pi halacha a change. Ketzad also. When a person obtains boards by robbery and attaches them to each other with nails and makes a chest, this is not considered a change. It's possible to separate them and make them simple boards as they were previously. If a person obtains sand by robbery and made it into bricks, like kono, he does not acquire it. Because one can crush the brick and return the sand. If he obtained a strip of metal by robbery and made it into a coin, he does not acquire it, because one can melt the coin and return this strip of metal. Same principles applied to any other similar instances. It base. A person obtained boards by robbery and burned them, cut them or carved them, or this was fashioned them into utensils. He obtained wool by robbery and dyed it. Or he spun it and whitened it. So this is considered a change. Because once he does this, he undoes the other change mentioned above. When a person robs old coins, polishes them, and renews them, like kono, he's not considered to acquire. For they will age and return to its previous stage. If he, however, he obtains new coins by robbery and causes them to look old, he does acquire. So, a person robbed a date palm that is growing and cuts it, does not acquire. Supplies, even if he cuts it into sections. If he makes it into boards, he does acquire it. If a person obtains large beams by robbery and cuts them into small beams, he does not acquire them. If he cuts them into boards, causing them to be called by a different name, he does acquire. If you obtain a lulav by robbery and a separated sleeve, one acquires the leaves. If a person obtained palm leaves by robbery and made them into broom, one acquires the broom. If he obtained a lamb by robbery and it becomes a ram, or one obtains a calf by robbery and it becomes an ox, it is considered to have undergone a change while in the robber's possession. Even if they didn't despair. If a person obtained a utensil by robbery and breaks it, we do not evaluate its depreciation. Instead, the robber is obligated to pay his worth, and he is given the broken vessel. If however the original owner desires to take the broken utensil, he is granted, and the robber must pay for its depreciation. It's a takana for the bailam. And if not, if he does not desire, he is granted that prerogative. When a object obtained by robbery does not undergo a change, but its value increases, it itself must be returned to the original owner, and the robber is not entitled to anything, even if the owner has already uzmiyayish. So I take the lagazan as hashavak achayish alakagin gizis of lodis. The chachamim granted the robber only the increase in value after the owner despaired of the object's return, in instances like the sharing of the wool or the offspring. He's not given any increase in value that comes from the rise in the article's worth when it is returned intact to its owner. Perek Gimel in Hilchos Gezelah ba'avedo. This Perek has 16 halachas. From Aleph to He speaks about when the erach of the Gezelah is changed. Halacha Vav to you speaks about the Gezel and the Nizek. Yud Aleph Tzid Gimel speaks about Shadech Yad B'Pikadin, Yud Aleph speaks about Hakefer B'Pikadin, and Tezvav and Tezayin, so you purchase the Shlei B'Rishus. Halacha Aleph, Hagezel Chavish L'Yayin Mechaveri. Person robs a jug of wine from his friend. Harishava Dinner B'Shas Gezelah. And when you stole it, when the person stole it, it was worth a dinner at the time of robbery. B'Hukra Etzlev Amda Barbo. And while it was in the robber's possession, his mazel went up to 4 dinarim. Now, if the broke jug, or he drank its contents, sold it or gave it away as a present after it increased in value, he has to pay for 4 dinarim. The worth when it left his possessions. Why? What's the svara? Because if he had left it there, not stolen it, he would have to return it intact, which would be worth 4 times the amount. If it broke because of other causes or was lost, then the robber has to pay only a dinar, the value at the time of the robbery. If it was worth 4 dinarim at the time of the robbery, but only 1 dinar when it left his possession, so then he has to pay 4 times the 4 dinarim it was worth at the time of the robbery. Whether it was broken or lost due to the other causes. Gimel. When a person stole or obtains by robbery a basket of 50 dates, now, if the entire basket were sold together, it would cost 9 coins. But if the dates were sold one by one, so altogether it would be 10. And in Mishalem El Tishi has to pay the value of 9. And the one who was stolen from can't say, I would sell it retail style, one by one. The same halacha applies by a mazit. This applies to a person that damages a friend. Property is required to reimburse him for a loss in a similar instance. When it comes to Hegdish, this is not so. The robber must pay 10 coins. When a person obtains an animal by robbery and it became old, or became weak, and will never regain his strength, because of an illness for which there is no cure, or a coin and a crack that was disqualified by the ruling authority, produce of the entire amount rotted, or wine and it became vinegar, so he's considered to be a person who obtained a keli by robbery and destroyed it. Now, if a person obtained an animal by robbery and they became weaker, but their strength could be restored, servants that they became old, a coin and it was disqualified as currency by one country but still accepted by another, or produce of which a portion became rotten, truma that became tummy, a chametz shabla a pesach, or an animal that was used for the purpose of sin becomes disqualified for a carbon on the mizbeach, or was condemned by the stone of death, the robber may tell the original owner, here's your article, and return it to him, the article obtained by the robbery. I met one of my warner when this is a black sheikh, Gezelah, when he returns Gezelah. If, however, the article obtained by robbery was burned or lost after benefiting from it becomes forbidden, the robber must pay the value at the time of the robbery. The robber denied possession of the article after deriving benefit from it became forbidden and affirmed his denial with an oath. He is chayav to pay the principal an additional fifth of its value and bring a carbon ashram. When a person obtained an animal by robbery and uses it to transport a burden, rides on it, plows or threshes with it, or the like, and then returns to its owner, he is over the commandment against robbery. Nevertheless, He's not chayiv for any payment, for he did not cause the animal any injury or weakness. If, however, this person becomes accustomed to robbing, withholding property, performing such acts, time after time, he should be penalized as applies even in the chutz. Basin should evaluate the wage of the increase in value that he earned with the animal, and the amount should be paid to the person whose property was taken. When a person seizes a servant belonging to a friend and causes him to perform malacha, but does not prevent him from performing work for his master, he's not chayiv. As far as that a person is happy that a servant doesn't do nothing. But if he does prevent him from doing work, then is to pay him as a hired worker. A person seizes a boat belonging to a friend and performs work with it. If the boat is not generally hired out, the damage of the boat should be evaluated and he has to pay for it. But if the boat he rents it out, if you are now, if the boat is generally hired out, there are two guidelines that apply. If the person took the boat within the kavanah of renting it, since the owner did not grant his permission, the owner has the option. He can collect the wage usually paid, or he collect the payment of the damage of the boat. If the person took the boat as robbery, he pays for the damage, which is less. He pays for the damage. Test. If a person now he dwells in a courtyard belonging to a friend without notifying him. Now, if let's say the chutzner is not usually rented out, he's not required to pay him. Even though the person who dwells him within it generally rents a dwelling, because it's however, if the courtyard is generally rented out, even though the person who dwells in it is not usually rented dwelling, he has to pay him rent. Because he caused the owner a loss of income. If a person owned a wool that he was dying in a vat, and another person came and added another dyes without the consent of the owner, the latter must pay the owner of the wool for the decline in the value of the wool he caused. The person whose property was damaged sees the value of the dye that he lost, the money should not be taken away from him. A person a person who without the owner's consent takes an object and trusts it to him for safekeeping, to use for his private purposes in a way that will diminish it, or to take as his own, is judged as a robber. Now this applies whether he takes the article himself or taken by him, by his son, his servant, or his agent. Let me read it again. Now, the person who takes the article is chayav for it if it's destroyed by forces beyond his control, and the object that he took is considered to be within his domain according to the laws that govern all robbers. A watchman who decides to take and entrust the article for his private purposes is not held responsible for it until he actually takes it. When, however, he takes the article from one place to another in his domain in order to take it for the private purposes, he is chayav, although he did not take any portion of the article entrusted. For the watchman, because responsible in such incidents, even when the entrusted article remains intact. As soon as the watchman lifts up the jug to take the revius of wine, he is chayav for it in the event of the destruction by forces beyond his control. Even if he did not take it, there's a suffix in If, however, he lifts up a wallet containing many coins to one dinner, there's a suffix whether he is chayav for the entire wallet, if it's destroyed by forces beyond his control, or he is chayav for only one dinner. So the halachas applies with regards to other instances where a container holds several discrete utensils. It gimel hayu peiros mufkad and hestay v'natul mikzasin in echayv ela b'achrayis a peiros natul shara pikadin and munaf b'mamim b'shus b'alefo. When produce was entrusted to a person for safekeeping, where he took a portion of its own, he's chayiv only for the purpose that he actually took. So again, how you perish b'fkodin that's natul mikzasin in echayv ela b'achrayis a peiros natul shara pikadin munaf b'mamim b'shus b'alefo. V'im nifsad hashar machmazeshin natul chayiv akil. If, however, the entire produce becomes spoiled because of the amount that he took, he is chayiv. Ketzera so. The watchman tilted a jug while it remained in its place and moved it to revis for more. So so the halacha is the watchman is chayiv only for the amount he took, for he did not lift up the jug. The wine turned into vinegar, he must pay the value of the entire jug at the time that he took. Based and a person denies in Beis Din having been given an object entrusted to him for Shmira. So he's considered to be a robber. If the object was in the possession at the time of his denial, he's chayav for the article if it destroyed by factors beyond his control. A person who borrows an object without the consent of its owner is considered to be a robber. As a if the utensil was in the hands of a person's son or a servant, another person took it from him and used it, he's considered to have borrowed an object without the consent of the owner. Now, first of all, the article is considered to have entered his domain and he's responsible for any of the event of destruction by force beyond his control. Therefore, if he returned to the miner or to the servant who was holding it beforehand and then it was lost or stolen, the borrower is chayiv. Last halacha test zayin achet the mashkin miyad alever shlever shus Beis Din hires a gazlan al mishu chayiv le. When a person seizes collateral from a leva without receiving license from the Beis Din, he's considered to be a robber, despite the fact that there's a chayiv to him. If he goes into the house and starts taking the mashkin, and he's a gazlan, it says stand outside, and the man who owes the chayiv will bring it to you as a security.